What's up, King of Kings? We're back again with the top five. Today we are doing the top five rock bands or rock artists of all times. With me is my co-host, as always, Captain Insano Clown Posse. Mr. B, what's up? How we doing?
It's really warm in these masks.
Yeah, but you are safe and sanitized like Pastor Greg Griffith wants us to be. And today we have two guests, two experts from our worship department, John Bartell, Steve Roberts. John, how we doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm great, man. Steve Roberts, how we doing?
Doing all right.
That piano behind you screams rock and roll.
Yeah,
so
it does.
today we will begin. Peter Bay will not have a list. He'll just add the comic relief. I'll share a summary list at the end. Steve and John will back and forth, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, honorable mention, that kind of stuff. But you, the listener, your comments are huge. You play a huge part of this top five. So comment below. Let us know where we got it right, where we got it wrong. The mask is off. He is ready to go. So I struggle with putting this list together. So Steve and John, I would love to hear how you guys approach this. Who's included? How did you define top five? John, we'll go to you. Tell us how you approach this.
So I tried to approach this as objectively as possible, not just who I listen to on the reg, but also who can I look at over the course of however long rock music has been a thing, and who are the absolute most innovative, most attractive, most creative, most out of this world rock band ever.
All right. Most attractive. I like that caveat.
Well, yeah, you know what I mean.
Steve, how did you approach?
Hold on. I want to specify on the reg means on the regular.
Thanks, Professor Bay. That's great. Steve Roberts, coming to you. How did you approach this top five list?
Yeah, very, very similar to John. The way I looked at it is the top five rock bands ever. These are bands that had to change the landscape. Music had to be different after they were done than when they came in. So where I really like bands like the Eagles or Queen, who is probably the greatest arena rock band, they still, because of that criteria, didn't match up.
Okay, I love it. For me, I was somewhere hybrid in between, great all time, but then also who I like to listen to. And I think for me personally, it was a very generational thing. There's so many old bands that I respect and say they're all-time great, but I don't know their music well enough to put them in. So we'll see how that comes out today. John, we're going to begin with you. Any honorable mentions or dishonorable mentions?
So my honorable mention is Jack White and the White Stripes.
I knew it had to be there.
That might not be a surprise to a lot of people, but the White Stripes single-handedly brought about a revitalization of blues rock in the early to late 2000s. So that is not a small feat, especially when your band has only two people and one of the people really can't play the drums that well. And the fact that you come out and are an incredible band anyways shows Jack White's talent in the White Stripes.
Okay. Steve Roberts, honorable mention, dishonorable mention. Who you got?
Yeah, only honorable. I got two of them. One is The Who. One of the most amazing shows I ever saw. The energy to pioneer the concept of a rock opera with Tommy, and then to follow that up with Quadrophenia, which talked about current events at the time. Kids living in London were in these two groups, either mods or rockers, and that's what Quadrophenia was all about. And my second honorable mention goes to Steely Dan. They're the only band that I think I've had every album that they ever made. They created an art form, and I think that their album Asia probably is one of the most important albums ever recorded in history.
Wow, some deep pulls here. Mr. B, I see some reactions. You got any commentary so far?
You know, from anyone who puts Backstreet Boys as number one on any list, anything, should not be talking when it comes to a rock conversation. And so I'm going to learn a lot today. I've never even heard of the album Quadrophenia in my life, so this is good.
Careful there. So we'll just go ahead and mute you the rest of the time, Peter. That's good. On to number 5, John Bartell's Who's on your list?
So this is probably going to be the most controversial pick out of my entire list. But for my number 5, I have a band called the Gorillaz. They are behind me. And the Gorillaz is a unique band because it's actually one person, but it's one person who was watching MTV in the 90s and said, all this music is fake. Let's try to make the most fake band ever. And he had a good friend who was a comic book writer, and they created a cartoon band. Their music is incredible. And what makes their music so incredible is they took a genre like hip hop and they approached it from a rock perspective. And they've worked with Snoop Dogg, MF Doom, Mos Def, Lou Reed. Yes, that Lou Reed.
That one.
Bobby Womack. So they've approached everything from a rock perspective, but they've jumped into hip hop. They've jumped into electronic dance music, into jazz, into Latin music. They are all over the place. And when they play live, they have like 25 people on stage, including like a 16-person orchestra. Incredible music.
Okay, that's a strong take right there. Steve, I'm expecting backgrounds to change when you announce your guys also. Who's your number 5?
My number 5 is Rush. For a band to be together for 41 years, you go through creative process, through recording, through touring, through promo, through everything. And to do that for 41 years with the same 3 guys is just astounding. They kind of defined, or at least hit us over the head with progressive rock. When Tom Sawyer first came out as a single, that was groundbreaking.
Yeah.
People are trying to tap their toe to songs that go from 5/8 to 7/8 to 11 beats in a measure and whatever, and it just doesn't line up. There were 3 consummate musicians, and John, you'd know this better than I, but Alex Lifeson just perfected these guitar soundscapes and effects that he used to create moods. Neil Peart was probably, other than Bud Rich, one of the most technical drummers ever in the history of music, and he would play the same complex fills the exact same way every night. It was just stunning. For fans, if you want to go listen to two of my faves are a song called Subdivisions, which kind of talks about kind of living in suburbia, the whole mall video arcade thing. And then NASA invited Rush to come and watch a space shuttle launch down at Cape Canaveral, and they wrote a song called Countdown. And you literally get taken along with them, the excitement of this launch that's about to happen. It's pretty cool.
All right. Mr. B, they're using a lot more syllables and words than you and I normally use. I think we're outsmarted by these 2 guys.
Yeah, I have no reason to be here. I might drift around my office for the rest of this conversation. Thank you, guys. You're doing great. Keep it up.
Feel free. One Rush comment, I've heard he had about 100-piece drum kit. I don't know if that's true. I heard just his drumming ability was incredible.
Yeah, but I'd die for him.
Oh.
Hey, he's back.
Is that a Rush lyric?
You froze for a second, Mike.
I know. All right, number 4, John, take us away. Who's your number 4?
No top 5 list would be without the Zeppelin of Lead, and it just, their band just worked right as the guitar distortion era was becoming popular. These guys set the stage with mind-numbing guitar solos over heavenly vocals with a drummer who definitely knew what he was doing. It just all around worked. It had some great blues influences in their music, but they were true definition of what rock and roll is.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well done. Steve, over to you, number 4.
My number 4 is the only American band on my list out of New York City. The name of the band is the Talking Heads. They were new wave pioneers. he could write amazing lyrics. Their film, their concert film, Stop Making Sense, to me is one of the top 5 concert movies of all times. It's just astounding the way it's put together. And some of their songs, Life During Wartime, which you might know as This Ain't No Party, This Ain't No Disco, is just a gripping song, as well as Once in a Lifetime, the one where David Byrne keeps saying, and you may ask yourself, and you may ask yourself. It's just an amazing song. And I'm gonna kind of cobble together a couple other bands because this is my only new wave section here. So I'm gonna throw The Clash, Elvis Costello, and The Police into this same one.
All right, Mr. B, your reaction up there. Any thoughts?
You may ask yourself. You may ask yourself.
Where is this beautiful car?
Yeah, I really thought that. So, was there a question that they ever followed that up with, or not? I really honestly thought there was a question, like white or wheat or rye. I had no idea, but
All
great
right.
stuff.
John, on to you, number 3.
Number 3 is the best of the Irish, U2. U2 took the idea of what it meant to go on world tour, and they owned it.
John, lean your head that way a little bit.
There
you
he
go.
There he is. I'll just scoot over this way.
I've heard of
Doesn't
Bono.
need to be seen. They pioneered new technology, and they created hit after hit with what we now call today the delay pedal. And with every album, they kept their signature sound, but changed it to stay relevant. And so that's not an easy feat over 30 years. They also made the rock show a spiritual experience, which in a lot of ways influenced how Christian music guitar players play, and they've influenced a lot of Christian worship songs in their kind of style of music.
Okay. All right.
You can say it was a spiritual experience when my mom or dad disciplined me with the delayed paddle. So.
Pedal, yes.
Pedal. Oh, got it. All right. Steve Roberts, number 3. Who you got?
Yeah, I'm just following in the wake of John Bartels there. My number 3 is Led Zeppelin. First of all, just how they got their name. This band was forming with these amazing studio players, Jimmy Page, who played in the Yardbirds and session player, and John Bonham and John Paul Jones, who were big session players. And Keelan, the drummer from The Who, heard that they were putting a band together with these guys, and he said, "Oh, that'll fly like a Led Zeppelin," which over here is our version of "That'll Fly Like a Lead Balloon." Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters has a quote that says, "Heavy metal music would suck if it weren't for Led Zeppelin." So that kind of carries a lot of time there. Their lyrics and their inspiration were from Norse mythology and from Lord of the Rings. They were the closest thing to Spinal Tap as we're in a real band. They were they would rock your face off, and then Jimmy Page John talked about John Bonham. They brought bass. Led Zeppelin brought bass and drums out front in the band. It wasn't a front man and a guitar player and then this rhythm section. Everybody was an equal player. Not too long ago, when Jay Leno was on The Tonight Show, Robert Plant was a guest, and he looked across the studio at Kevin Eubanks and the Tonight Show band at the time, and he said, "You know, we wanted to be you guys. We wanted Led Zeppelin to sound like a bunch of Chicago blues musicians, and that's what you are." And to me, their fourth album, or their Zoso album, is one of the ones that kind of has to go on Mount Rushmore. Any album with Stairway to Heaven on it.
Yeah.
And no, it's not an anti-Christian song.
All right. I also think their lyrics were inspired by copious amounts of drugs. Mr. B, you want to add something?
Yeah, there's two groups whose first 10 albums got to the top 10 album status, and that was Led Zeppelin. And my number one, Backstreet Boys.
All right, Ben, we'll speed this up. John, number 2, who you got?
For my number 2?
Yes, sir.
For my number 2, I have, let me find the background. I have the Beatles.
Oh.
Beatlemania was a real thing. I even remember when I was in school, Beatlemania was something that they taught us in our history classes, which I think is significant. And I don't think I'll ever be able to appreciate how big of a band they were because they were just that big. And as they say, each member was skilled at what they did. John was the soul, George was the spirit, Paul was the heart, and Ringo was the drummer. And just I don't think it's any bigger than.
So that's why you put him at number 2.
Oh,
just wait.
Okay. Give him time. Steve, who's
Backstreet's
number 2?
All right.
All right, so my number 2, again, following in the wake of John Bartels, my number 2 is a band out of Dublin, Ireland called U2.
Wow.
U2, I don't have a bucket list, except I've added some things to my bucket list, except a U2 show has been on my bucket list for probably worship experience. No, I am not worshiping Bono or man, but the way the lyric comes out. Here's an interesting tidbit. U2 started writing their own songs because they were such poor musicians, they couldn't play anybody else's songs. They couldn't figure out how to play them. So they wrote their own.
Interesting.
John talked about the Edge's guitar playings. Each album, he'd come out with like a new tuning or a new effect or a new whatever. And there are some that just stick forever. Where Streets Have No Name is one of the most copied songs of all time. And John, tomorrow night, we're going to record Worship for Sunday, and you're going to play a song where I wrote in the chart, play Streets Have No Name, because the guitar player on this, I don't know, Elevation or Hillsong session literally stole the Streets Have No Name and put it in this song that we're going to play.
Wow.
That's pretty often.
Yeah. Raise a Hallelujah, that's what it is. They're a band with a conscience. They're all from Dublin. So to write a song like Sunday Bloody Sunday about the 1972 Derry massacre that took place, the way I describe them, they are not a Christian band, but they are a band of Christians. So they're not going to be blatant in their spirituality, but it's going to be in everything that they do. Listen to their song called 40. The lyric for the song is Psalm 40. I waited patiently for the Lord. He inclined to me and heard my voice. I heard my cry. It's just stunning stuff. Joshua Tree is probably on the Mount Rushmore of albums. You have to get to the 8th song on that album before you get to a B-side. And if you want some fun, look up a YouTube video with Bono and Eugene Peterson, who did the Message Bible, talking about Psalms. It's stunning.
All right. We're always looking for fun here in top fives. John, take us home. Who's your number 1?
So Steve mentioned this band earlier, but I'm taking them all the way to number 1.
Queen.
That is Queen. Freddie Mercury, Brian May, Roger Taylor, John Beacon, all of them amazing musicians themselves, incredible voices, incredible songwriters, each of them, but together they can only be described as Queen. 53 top 40 singles. They check every mark in every category: musicianship, live shows, songwriting, just straight on craziness. And some of their concerts are like written in history, such as Queen Rocks Montreal and Live Aid 1985.
Mm.
Brian May, the guitar player I think he wrote most of the songs, built his own guitar at age 14 and played it throughout his life. And then after Queen kind of settled down, he went on to get his doctorate in astrophysics and then wrote a book on astrophysics. And then you have Freddie Mercury, who probably has the best voice in rock history. And there's a lot more reasons that, but Queen is the greatest rock band in the world.
All right.
John, let me throw this in there. After he died, they did a Freddie tribute concert at Wembley Stadium, and all these artists came in to cover Queen songs. There were a half a dozen amazing artists who had to transpose the Queen songs down because they couldn't reach the notes that Freddie Mercury could hit.
Yep.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Steve-O, take us home. Who's your final rock band?
Okay, I'm again following in John's trail. My number one. Can you name a band that they could make a movie like Yesterday about, other than the Beatles? You know, imagine if you were the only person in the world that had ever heard of Run DMC, or the only person in the world that had ever heard of, you know, whomever. It's got to be the Beatles. For a band that stopped touring in 1964, was their last live show, to do what they did, to have the weight that they've put on music, their influences early on. And again, I talked about changing as you go. You know, their early influences were like Little Richard and Buddy Holly. And here's trivia for you. The band The Beatles, John Lennon named them in homage to Buddy Holly and the Crickets. He called his band The Beatles. To then move into the pop songs, to then move into the drug influence, to then move into the Hindu influence. I mean, it's all there. The fifth Beatle was George Martin, their producer, and the studio itself. He invented backtracking. Take a tape and play it backwards and this is all tape. Play it backwards through the tape machine. They invented splicing, where you literally take the tape, cut it, because there were two songs that they did. There were two arrangements of one song that they did where the beginning was really loud and the ending was really soft, and they liked them both on these arrangements. So they literally cut it, they time matched it, they used tape to tape it together, and that's what it became. But George Martin did stuff like, listen to the Beatles music. You hear a harpsichord on the solo for In My Life. You hear a piccolo trumpet on the solo in Penny Lane. On Eleanor Rigby, you don't hear one Beatle playing an instrument. It's a double string quartet. They had the most, all right, we'll go statistics, John. They had the most #1 albums of all time. They have the most Billboard #1 Hot 100 hits of all time. They have the most singles sold of all time. The night that they appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show, 34% of the people alive in America watched them. And then again, just the maturity process to go from I Want to Hold Your Hand to In My Life to All You Need Is Love, you know, through I Am the Walrus and, you know, Long and Winding Road and Hey Jude. It's just, the evolution of that band is just astounding.
All right. I feel like I'm getting an education from some doctorates in rock and roll here, man. This is crazy. All right. Let me give my list very quickly. I'll recap you guys, give you all a final thought. My list, again, is leaning more on who I like to listen to. I admit that some of these are not the greatest bands of all time. They're some of my favorites to listen to. Number 5, this one is one of those. Need to Breathe. Newer one to me, man. Love the sound, love the style, just the bluesy rock, just a really cool sound. Number 4, this one would, I think, fit in this group. Metallica. Man, Hetfield, Ulrich, Hammett, those guys have been rocking for so many years. Just maybe metal, if that's a different category, but I included them in rock. Okay. Number 3, you guys mentioned this, Led Zeppelin. Incredible guitar, incredible vocals, arrangement, all that kind of stuff. 2 and 1, it fits me. I was huge in the grunge era. This is the only one whose lead singer is still alive, due to not suicide or drug overdose. Pearl Jam, number 2 on my list, still cranking out high-quality albums these days. Their album 10 was revolutionary, I think. And this one, my favorite of all time, Stone Temple Pilots. May not hit the all-time great, but man, their songs are so – I love listening to them. Weiland, the guitarist DeLeo, those guys. Those are my top 5. Let me give you guys a recap and then one more thought from each of you guys around the horn. John, number 5, the Gorillaz. 4, Led Zeppelin. 3, U2. 2, the Beatles. And number 1, Freddie Mercury and Queen. Steve-O, number 5, you are Rush. Talking Heads, Led Zeppelin. Number 2 is U2. And the number 1, the Beatles. Mr. B, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to hear from you. Who's the champ? Who's the champ? Let us know who you think picked the top 5, top whatever, top whatever, and also tell us your top 5. We want to hear from y'all.
That's good. John Bartels, final thoughts or reactions to my list or anyone else's list?
It's hard to get them all in 5. It's very hard because, everyone has their unique things that they like from each band and unique tastes. And no one's really wrong except Peter and the Backstreet Boys.
Amen. We're in agreement there. You have to leave out some excellent all-time greats in this. Only pick 5. Steve, final thoughts from you.
Yeah, 2 things. One is I don't want to break your heart, but Bo Reinhardt has left Need to Breathe.
I know.
So I hope you had a chance to see them, and I think you did.
I did.
His solo stuff is pretty good, though.
Yeah. And I knew that STP was going to be on your list somewhere.
Awesome. I love them. Well, listeners, comment below. Let us know where we got it right, definitely where we got it wrong, and your top 5 list. From Professor B and myself, we love you guys. John, Steve, thanks again. Well done today.